Hello guys and welcome back to Motor Coasters. My name is Anderson. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 roller coasters I rode in 2021. Before we start, remember to subscribe. Again, sorry it's been a while. I'll probably talk more about that in detail in my next video. Anyway, let's get straight into the top 10 list. So number 10, you've got Steel Hawg at Indiana Beach. So the three main parks I visited were Dorney Park, Dorney Park, Six Flags New England, Hershey Park, and Indiana Beach. Although Indiana Beach won't make it onto the rest of the list, just due to some really good coasters, they do have what is a really compact yet pretty quality roller coaster at Steel Hawg. I was debating between putting this or the Hyper at Dorney, Steel Force on here. I also thought about Lightning Racer at Hershey Park, but I settled on Steel Hawg due to its fun inversions and really uniqueness of the ride, which you can't really find anywhere else. Not only that, but it has such unique elements, purposely twisting you out of the way, twisting upside down and hanging you and things, all that crazy stuff that it does on its compact layout. Anyway, let's move on to number 9. And number 9 is Great Bear at Hershey Park. This one just barely made the list, mostly due to the fact that Great Bear is kind of it's barely fit in. It's like they had these little parcels of land and it just barely flies over all of them. It's definitely a cool ride. It's a unique experience, but it's a little clunky in my opinion. It's a little clunky of a B&M Hydra. And I think it's in some aspects cool that it's such a weird, clunky ride. In other aspects, it's also not that, it's so unique that it's not the greatest invert just because of its, uniqueness. It has so many things that are weird, but weird in, worse than average ways. I would definitely put this above a Batman the Ride clone, but there is another invert on this list that is certainly better than Great Bear. And number 8, you've got Hydra. This is a B&M floorless coaster. This was my second ever B&M floorless coaster. And unfortunately, it is the worst of the two that I've ridden. But it is still a great ride. That JoJo roll, pretty sick. I definitely thought about this going below Great Bear or above the next ride. But I think it wouldn't be right for me to switch this into either of those places. Because it's better than Great Bear. It has some crazy inversions. It's also very unique, but it's unique in the standard ways, where it just has unique elements, but it still feels like a regular roller coaster. Whereas Great Bear just has all these things that it feels like it's just moving out of the way of the park, when a roller coaster should be, it should be causing things to be built around it. Whereas, Great Bear was just kind of built where they had space. But Hydra is definitely a great ride. Not too tall, not too fast, but still a great B&M floorless. A lot of great elements. Number 7 is Talon. Talon also at Dorney Park. These are the only two coasters they have on this list, and Talon's certainly the better of the two. It starts kind of like a standard, Batman the Ride layout. You go up a lift, you go down to the right, and you go into an inversion. But then it kind of changes up. It has, the turnaround was much cooler, and what I will say is all B&M inverts, they have these standard elements. You got your vertical loop, you got your Immelman, you got your corkscrew, and I feel like this one just did the corkscrew better. It felt whippier. At the end of most of the B&M inverts, including Batman, they go into this section where it's kind of about speed, turns, whippy, and these corkscrews, and I just felt like this one felt more intense. It felt like it kept pace better throughout the ride. It felt like an elevated invert. It felt like a little better than Batman, a little better than Great Bear, a little better than the mid-tier, but it's definitely still worse than rides like Banshee or Raptor. But let's move on to the next. Next ride on the list in number 6 is Batman the Dark Knight. Batman the Dark Knight is the first ever floorless coaster I rode, and so far, it's held up as the best, although Hydra gave a run for its money. After thinking about both rides, I definitely gave it to Batman the Dark Knight. It feels like, to me, they took the standard Batman layout, tweaked it a little bit. Like, they took the invert layout, classic Batman invert layout, and just put it into a floorless. That's what it felt like. It was definitely a little weird. It had, it had this cool turnaround, like I said about the last ride. And it had the big inverted loop, loop. Great. And I don't know why. I like floorlesses more than I like inverts. That may be a unique thing that only I share with 1% of coaster riders, but when I've ridden a B&M floorless coaster, it feels intense, it feels exhilarating, and then you ride an invert. I don't know why they have like the same restraint, and yet it feels like on the floorless. Maybe it's because I can move my feet more or something. I don't know. I like floorlesses more. It's just my opinion. But I would have to say that floorlesses are this floorless in particular is better than the other rides I have talked about on this list. Number 5 on this list is Stormrunner at Hershey Park with their second entry on this list so far. They've got a few more coming up. Stormrunner is a great ride. I just gotta be honest. It is in 5th place for a reason, and its reason is mostly the launch. It has that crazy fast launch. It was faster and more exhilarating than I remember. And I don't know, this is weird. This feels weird. I've ridden a really speedy launch in a while, so maybe it's just that exhilarating feeling. But it felt like it's faster than, like, I've ridden the Stratocoaster, CP, Top Thrill Dragster, a few times, mostly in the further back rows. I rode this one in the, I think, second row, maybe front row, I forget. Either way, rode it in the second row. It felt way faster. Like, it felt like, I was thinking back to that after I was getting off the ride. And it feels like faster, even though it's like definitely slower and definitely smaller. But what also adds to it is, it's sure not as tall, and I know that launch is slower. But it really doesn't, the speedier you go doesn't really help it too much. But what did advance this higher than, in my opinion, the Top Thrill Dragster is the inversions. Sick flying snake dive, whatever the heck that is. And just a bunch of sick elements. It felt like a complete ride to me, and whereas Top Thrill Dragster, it's got that launch, but that's about it. It feels like a gimmick. It feels like a gimmick to me, and this ride does not. But let's move on to ride number 4, also at Hershey Park. Number 4 on this list is Skyrush. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, how can Skyrush possibly be 4th? Well, when you do prefer the other hyper at the park, that is how it at least goes down one spot. And I also did put Superman above this, and I'll explain that in a second. Now, it's Skyrush and Superman. To me, people would completely disagree with me. Skyrush and Superman are pretty similar rides. They're both intense. They're both speedy. But to me, Superman gets ahead of Skyrush with its airtime hills. And I think now its airtime hills are not the greatest airtime hills, at least compared to the other rides at that park, But when I'm talking about Skyrush, it lacks this. It doesn't feel complete because it's sheer speed, and then you're just kind of doing turns. And I people are gonna hate me for this, but the reason it's 4th on this list, it's definitely top 20, top 15 for me, maybe even top 10, maybe. But on this list, just because I only rode it once, I rode it pretty close to the front, like 3rd row, it just didn't feel like a complete ride to me. Again, I just said this about Top Thrill Dragster. It feels like it has its gimmick. Its gimmick is it's a hyper, it's tall, and it's speedy. And then it gives up that gimmick. It doesn't really use it to its fullest because it doesn't give you airtime. It doesn't give you a variety of elements. I'm also a B&M guy. I'm more of a B&M guy, more of an airtime guy. Whereas I think there's people who are just, I guess I'll call it speed demons. which I am, you know, there's sheer speed rides like Top Thrill Dragster and this ride that are both in my top 15. But it certainly felt like a little bit of a gimmick, and I don't know that it deserves to be any higher than it is on this list. No offense to fans of Skyrush. Now we're gonna move on to number 3, which is Superman at New England. So this is their second ride on this list, and they're gonna get a third later on. I'll make you guess. But Superman is just a great ride. Superman it has the airtime, it has the speed, it has everything Skyrush has, except in my opinion, it uses a little better. There's a little asterisk to this though, because if you ride with the if the restraints affect you in any way whatsoever and make the ride worse at all, then that is just blown to smithereens. Then that analysis of being a top tier ride is just gone if the restraints are all bad in any little way. So when you think about this ride being a good ride, it's got to be with the good restraints, and that's the only way. But let's move on to number 2, which is Candymonium. This is my favorite ride at Hershey Park. Call me wrong, call me stupid, I don't care. I'm a B&M guy, I'm an airtime guy. And this is an airtime machine. Not only that, it's a very unique hyper, and it has this feeling like unlike other hypers, it has this feeling, this grand feeling that you've made it. You're going around that Hershey's Kiss fountain in that one turn, and it just feels like, okay, damn, like it's at the end of the ride, right? You're going around this Hershey's Kiss fountain, and you're just thinking like, oh, damn, that was a good ride, and it's not even over. You get like another airtime moment before you hit the brakes. It just feels like you've hit this jackpot of a perfect ride. Maybe not that, but I waited 20 minutes for this thing, and that might be why I appreciate it even more, is because I waited so little for it. And Skyrush, I waited triple the time, and I was less satisfied. And I think that's part. Now, I shouldn't look at the wait times at all. That should not come into my analysis. But after, you know, it's got so many elements that I just wish Raging Bull had. Because Raging Bull is, to me, one of the greatest hypers I've ridden. And it feels weak at these moments. Like, it feels like it could have been better. It has so many great things about it. It has that first drop, killer. It has the drop off the brakes, killer. But it lacks in so many areas that this ride feels like a more complete ride, and that's what I liked about this, where Skyrush just didn't feel complete. Now we're gonna move on to number 1. It's kind of obvious with Cyclone. You go off that drop, it's sick. We rode in the front row, we rode in the back, near back row, and I just, every moment, I'm like, every airtime hill, every turn, every moment, it's like, damn, this ride's great. And I'm gonna be honest, Steel Vengeance, great ride. This one did not edge it out. Don't say that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's better than Steel Vengeance. But it's so neck and neck. Like, it probably shouldn't be, but it's so neck and neck. Because this one is definitely, it has so many more. It has about the same amount of airtime moments, and this ride also just feels so weird, but so right. Whereas Steel Vengeance, it's so hyped up. You wait so long for it, you get in line, you ride it, and it feels like it. You don't feel like it's complete. You don't feel like you made in life. You don't feel like that was the perfect ride. That's the best roller coaster I've ever ridden. And I feel like when you ride the best coaster you've ever ridden, you should be able to come off saying that. And sometimes just coming off Steel Vengeance, it doesn't feel that way. But I think I'm gonna eventually find another ride, probably Iron Gwazi, probably another great coaster in the United States that I prefer more. Could even be something like X2 at Magic Mountain. But we'll see. That's my thoughts on the top 10 coasters I've ridden this year. If you have any opinions, and I'm sure you will, because my list was not exactly right in the brain, okay? I had some interesting decisions made. But if you have some opinions about it that you just want to talk about in the comments below, feel free, and I'll see you guys down in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'm gonna see you guys next time. So goodbye.